you might know, last time we started covering coaching versus mentorship aspect of differences between various modalities and ways of working with other people. This week is very different. This week we are covering the differences and similarities when it comes to coaching and teaching. Now, as coaching itself has got many fans and also many people who have no idea what coaching even is in the first place, teaching perhaps, on the other hand, thanks to our education system, seems to be a more familiar modality and the one that we can grasp quite easily in comparison to other ways of service provision. And so, Linda, what do you think? What would be the biggest, perhaps, advantage of coaching versus teaching?
Yes. Well, I will say that the two are interdependent, but the advantage of coaching is that you are looking for a result. That is the number one benefit of coaching, an advantage. The teaching sets the infrastructure for the coach to take it to the next level.
Okay. I would also perhaps add that coaching from a certain perspective is very much about self-discovery, right? Teaching provides a framework, by all means. Teaching gives direct information that the person can choose to implement, memorize, find useful one way or another, as a tool, as a framework, as a blueprint, whatever it might be. Whilst coaching can be also, yes, it does lead to a goal or a certain result, but it does so in a very sort of personalized and self-investigative process way, maybe put it this way. And perhaps in the future we will find a synthesis of the two. Perhaps we'll find a good way to synergize both coaching and teaching, which would be a certain aspect of elevation of both of these, to personalize the teaching process altogether and take it to a whole new level. And I'm wondering then, what would be then that aspect of teaching that so many people might find interesting enough to take it up as a profession? What do you think, Linda?
So really, teaching is that landscape where there's an exchange of knowledge. And so while a teacher may have the infrastructure to introduce a topic or idea, they actually use that coaching piece to make it interesting. And the whole idea around why someone would want to become a teacher is really because they have a love of learning and they want to impart that on their students, to their participants. And when you can set the stage of the foundation, that's the most exciting part, because once a person learns the foundation of any technical piece of information, then really it belongs in the coach's hand when it comes to integration. And what I find most exciting about teaching is the fact that an individual gets to work with someone, a teacher or a coach, and then when that learning is exchanged, then they can actually do things on their own. And so it's the teacher's ultimate dream or desire that the student will be able to take it to that next place and really embody the skill or the ability well enough to not need to go back to the teacher. So, I really love that quote, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah. What I also quite like is this notion that when it comes to teaching very much relies, like you said, on laying those foundations, those frameworks that are usually tried and tested. Therefore, there is this solid backup, let's say, of a given model. Whatever it might be, whether it's mathematics, whether it's language, right? Physics. A teacher should obviously have a good, thorough, and comprehensive understanding of the topic, by all means. And they can provide a ready-made model of understanding of a given concept or an aspect of that concept, with which then a given person can utilize to their own advantage as and when required. It's a bit of a turnkey solution from a certain perspective. Yeah, this is ready-made knowledge packaged and delivered on the spot. Obviously, there are still times for questions and answers, by all means. However, there is a certain level of assurance that, okay, this is it. This is it. This is how one can approach reality, because we have some facts, for example, to back it up. Maybe scientific research, maybe something else. Something that proves that a given concept is actually valid, it's testable, and there is a confirmation that that is so. Whilst in comparison, for example, coaching very much relies on that investigative, journey of, well, inquisitive questions, inquiry, going within, and then discovering our own personal truths, things that are important to us. They might be relying on all those things that we were taught. They might be based on the things that we already know or just found out about. And now in coaching, we have an opportunity to find our own relationship with those things. How we look, how we approach, let's say, how we look at things that we were taught, and consider our own position, our own perspective on what has been said, for example. And this, let's say, this aspect of coaching, obviously, it can be applied to as much to when it comes to business as, let's say, for example, when it comes to relationships and other aspects of life. It can be spirituality, it can be health, it can be well-being, it can be fitness, and so on and so forth. And yet it is very much about finding your own personal truth in relation to the world and certain frameworks that already exist. And this also, by the way, what can make a coach's experience so rewarding in the end, knowing that the person is discovering themselves afresh from a certain perspective. They are becoming more aware of how they are, who they are, and who they wish to be. And they start to believe that, yes, they can have it all. In many cases, this is such a beautiful moment in every coaching experience, when a person who is being coached realizes that, yes, they do have the capacity to have what they wanted all along. From another perspective, obviously, laying those foundations for another person can also be hugely rewarding, knowing that the knowledge that is being imparted will serve that person most likely for decades, if not until the end of their days. And so there is this notion of service provision. And I mean, something really, really meaningful here. Sharing that knowledge, sharing those frameworks, and building upon them, so that that person then can build their next level life experience, a next level professional experience on those steady foundations that they got taught by a professional. And I wonder, Linda, what would be then, let's say, the very best way for a coach to introduce a bit of teaching in their own service?
That's a really good question. So as a coach, when I am working with a team member on a new competency, a lot of times we will talk about a time where they had to learn something new and they weren't really certain about their ability to move it forward with what the knowledge they had. And so I get them to think about a time where that did work for them, where they were not as certain. They had to go into that ambiguity and be resourceful and take those steps of action, and then they had a really good result. And so sometimes we are doing the appreciative inquiry about what could be based on a time that they've experienced before. Other times there might not be that yet. And so I will go into a story about a time where I might have been in a similar space and share the things that I did that were helpful and to my benefit, and then maybe some of the things that didn't work out quite the way I'd anticipated, but demonstrate how even when something doesn't work in the way that you envisioned or the way that you had wanted and the timing that you were after, that there's a lesson to be learned and to be aware of those lessons coming in, because it's in that moment where you're on the verge of wanting to throw in the towel and maybe not go forward with something, or being really hard on yourself. That can happen a lot, right? To really, just accept in the moment that maybe something's not working, and really dig into, okay, what is this telling me and how could I utilize this? The moment when a person puts themselves into an empowered state of, okay, yes, this happened and this is what I can do, that's when the magic happens. The perspective shifts, the confidence comes back, and you can see it visually in a coaching session.
Yeah, I've also experienced it many times myself, and yeah, there is magic in that journey, right? It's a different kind of magic, from a certain perspective. Being a teacher can be, utterly rewarding. My dad has been a teacher for years, and I mean decades by now, and he found that line of career so rewarding, progressing from one step to another. And yeah, it's a different kind of experience, right? It's a different kind of interaction with other people, for sure. So I suppose it's also, about that natural fit for a person. Some people are naturally very good teachers. They have that imparting quality about them. Yeah. It's less about self-inquiry and more about that sharing a certain framework, for example, or blueprint of understanding the world or otherwise. And somehow it sticks. Somehow they explain it so well that those people who are being taught understand how they can improve their own lives one way or another. On the other hand, as we are also obviously discussing here similarities and differences, when it comes to coaching and teaching. On the other hand, that beautiful aspect of coaching that is self-inquiry, facilitated also and catalyzed by the coach, allows people to also reach that elevation in life. Even though it happens in a slightly different area, there is a different aspect of life perhaps. However, it can be equally transcendental. The skill set might be slightly different. The teacher might rely on talking a lot, sharing information, yeah, whether it's delivered in visual terms, via speech or otherwise, whilst coaching, in many cases, coaching is very much about inquisitive questions of curiosity, asking those deep, meaningful questions, and then allowing the person to unravel. Therefore, even the way we speak, on, let's say, during a teaching experience and a coaching experience might be very, very different indeed. And normally people feel that one way or another is more suited to them. They either they have this natural propensity to talk and explain and simplify. That's their gift. And this is where teaching can become a career of choice. And when it comes to coaching, for example, so many people have that natural gift for asking deep, probing questions. So if you, dear person, if you get that note every now and then that mention that, oh, this is such a good question. Oh, this is such a good question, right? That perhaps means that you are, you could consider a career in coaching, even as a part-time career, because somehow those questions that you're asking are inviting that other person to self-reflect and find that deeper inner truth within. And I wonder, Linda, when it comes to those, let's go for similarities between the two modalities. What is the sweet spot here? Let's say if there is, right, that sweet spot of utilizing coaching during teaching sessions, classes, perhaps, and the other way around. What is the sweet spot here? How could we create that next level learning experience for many generations to come?
That's an excellent question. And so I'm thinking about the sweet spot that you mentioned when you are coaching and the teaching is part that you're integrating. And really, it's that moment, that realization that the concept that you're teaching, all of a sudden, the person can see how they can implement it, they can embody it. The moment that comes on, that is the sweet spot. And it's so visual in a coaching session to see that happen. And really, to get there, you're right, it can be a conversation, can be a story, and it can be, depending on the person's learning style, it can be the model that you're using where they just visually see what's going on. Or they're a kinesthetic learner. They are learning through doing. And again, very visual when that happens. And that's my favorite part when I'm coaching somebody, when I'm using a model and all of a sudden it just sets in. Or, you know, we might be working on something technical in nature and it's not coming to fruition like they wanted, but the error is the answer. So the error is like, oh, now I know what functionality this has. Oh, now I know what someone else is going to experience. And oh, I can go teach that to another person. So actually, that's the sweet spot, is when a person can know a subject well enough that's receiving that knowledge transfer and then be able to teach it to somebody else. That's the sweet spot. So thank you very much for guiding me through that moment, because I feel like we were just doing it just now.
Awesome. Beautiful. And I suppose this is also, right, a perfect example why last year students are so good at teaching current year students the knowledge that they learned last year, right? It's this notion that a teacher doesn't have to be years and decades older than a person being taught. Quite the opposite. We are now discovering also in our education system that people even just a few years older who have learned something, integrated that knowledge, can be so good at teaching it themselves. Because they are they have freshly gone through a certain experience. They understand what it took them to understand a given concept well for a person of a similar age, brought up in a similar, socio, let's say, economic reality, including technology and so on. Therefore, they can relate to that person better. They can relate, for example, to a student who is just a few years younger than themselves. And so they find those ways of imparting that knowledge in sometimes ingenious ways, because they understand that younger student. They understand what they need. And, this is, a wonderful topic to investigate for anyone who wishes to know more about teaching, for example, how, well, let's say a future of teaching is very much perhaps different to what we used to experience in the past. This notion of 45-minute or an hour-long classes where people sit for a whole hour looking at material might also be coming to an end. Now that we recognize that so many people are highly kinesthetic and they work and they learn best by learning and experiential, let's say, awareness, this is where well, our whole education system is challenged to come up with better solutions to cater for, a huge, actually, there's a big percentage of kids and younger people, and also adults, obviously, by all means, who happen to be highly kinesthetic. And for them, teaching by providing just visual materials is just not good enough. Therefore, those people would benefit more from learning that includes movement, that includes some change, that includes change of scenery, for example, that includes doing with their own hands rather than passively acquiring written information, or maybe a visual input in form of a video or otherwise. There are also so many people, for example, who are audiophiles. They learn best by listening. Therefore, for them, written content is also not ideal. They just don't process it well. They don't learn well from a written material. And for them, anything that includes an audio input, including audiobooks, videos that include audio, and so on and so forth, can provide a huge learning advantage. And so the future is coming when perhaps the schools will assess their students and then put them into classes that perhaps group students of a given learning type together, so that people who are highly kinesthetic have their classes delivered for them in that highly kinesthetic related way. People who are audio-based, audiophiles, they will be learning more by utilizing audio content. And people who are highly visual, they will be learning together based on visual content, so that learning and information acquiring capacity is leveraged. It's enjoyable. It's fun. At last, teaching can be fun. Imagine. And this is perhaps something worth striving for. A world where our kids, and other people too, by all means, they enjoy the learning experience. They think fondly of those school years when they were acquiring knowledge in a fun way, engaging, memorable. And then later on, perhaps, maybe they wish to also investigate that self-inquiry via coaching, so that they can know themselves better. They know who they are, they know what they want, they know what matters to them. And for that, for sure, there might not be ready-made solutions just yet. This is something that they need to investigate themselves. And this is a perfect opportunity for a coach to step in and provide that catalytic experience for that person to know themselves better. And I wonder, Linda, as our segment here is coming to a close, what would you like to leave with our listeners and viewers to invite them to investigate both coaching and teaching alike?
Okay, first I have a comment. And so why stop at children and youth for the fun and learning?
Agreed.
Honestly, if you can make it fun and you can make a game out of it as an adult learner, get my hands in there, I love it. So definitely don't stop at the youth. Put that into the experience for the adults. They're just as curious. It's just we need a little reminder that we can play in the sandbox. And so how we want to approach this, or how we want to do this, to introduce people to coaching and what the experience can be, it's through a mutual guidance session. That's a session that Konrad and I are hosting, where individuals get to come into a space where they're supported, and we have a discussion topic. And the last discussion topic we had about commitments, our relation to them. And for this month, for the month of March, we are moving into transitions. So as the season is transitioning into spring, and we are moving throughout the year, there is that change that happens among all of us. And so transitions come in many different shapes and sizes and lengths. And so really, if a person were wondering about even their transitions, whether it's into a new job, a new role, maybe it's your children going off to college, you could be entering into a new friendship, you could be taking care of aging parents. All of these are transitions. And so if you're wanting some support and some discussion in a community of people also going through transitions, the guidance sessions that we have are a great place to start.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, thank you, Linda. We have a growing number of people turning up to those sessions. And so we'll release the dates underneath the video, and we will keep on talking about them too in future episodes. Talking of which, please bear with us as next time we will be talking about differences between coaching and training. That's also one of the very hot topics, as so many people wish to acquire a skill these days. And so training provides that capacity. And so we hope to be joined again by Mick next week so that we can make the magic happen. And for now, we would like to wish everybody a very good day. And we hope that you found this episode valuable, insightful, and it will entice you to become a regular during our sessions. Thank you so much, and speak to you soon.